Amazing and awesome. Thank you, Abigail. We're so excited to have you here to kick off Hotbed Summer. I think it'd be great to give everyone here on the call just a little bit of overview of your background and how you ended up focusing on this area.
Yeah, thank you guys for allowing me into your awesome space. Bit nervous being thrown in the deep end, but it's all good. It's all good. So, where do I come from? So, I've been organising an array of C-suite execs, MDs, usually within the legal profession over the last 20, probably more like 25 years, really now. But in the last 2 to 3 years, I've really stepped into solely focusing on time management, energy management as well. I know that might sound a little bit woo-woo, but in practice, it absolutely works. So we'll go into that a bit later. Yeah, I recognise that I'm far better at just the day-to-day, working on people's mental load and really translating that into real time. Everyone's got a to-do list. We always will have a to-do list, and realizing that annihilating your to-do list isn't always the way to go. So it's just about, do you know what? You're not going to tick everything off today, and that's fine because we're human. So sometimes it is just about recognizing that. So it's taking all the stuff that I realized I was actually really good at within my PA background, within a very, very rigid corporate setting, and putting it into the real world. I've been a founder for core back 2017, however many years ago that was. Um, yeah, and it's just strengths and weaknesses. So again, we're going to be talking about that as well. So looking at my own strengths and weaknesses, I realised that actually I wanted to do far more than what PAs are kind of recognised for, and I wanted to work for the person, which is where the founder came from, really. People that are building businesses, people that are building legacies, and big stuff. Where are they in their day to day? Where are they in their plan 5, 10 years down the line? Because if they're not involved in the list, then generally speaking, they're going to be feeling crap. What they're building isn't going to be long lasting, etc. So it's putting that into the day to day. So that's where I come from, in a real whistle stop tour.
Amazing. Thank you. And maybe we can just get started on like just your perspective as a founder working with founders and high performing executives, like just the feeling of having to do it all and wear all the hats and how founders, think about that and then how we kind of how you think about putting them back in their own lives.
Yeah, it's exhausting, right? It is exhausting being a founder myself. I pivoted last year, so I really, really took ownership of this stuff that everyone, I'm sure, can really resonate with. The mental monkeys, I think, are definitely at the top on the list in terms of, you should be working. Why aren't you doing this? You've got this to do. It's literally never ending. Even if you feel like you're getting somewhere, in your head, you've got this, I call them a community of Lego men in my head that are constantly but you've got this to do. You haven't replied to your emails. You've got, your phone's going off. We live in a world of constant notification. Everything is just at our fingertips, which works brilliantly. But if you haven't some flexible boundaries in place, you feel like you're getting eaten alive. And when you're building something from scratch, you want to do it all because it's your thing. You want to build it from the ground up, but it's recognizing that we're human. We're human. Sleep, water, all those real basic things that we actually aren't doing. We aren't getting enough sleep. We aren't getting enough water. So what I work with clients is, I had it yesterday with a client. He literally fell into his chair. Was like, you've not drank any water. I can see you're absolutely exhausted. I sent him off on the call, go and get a litre of water, come back. And he was like, actually, wow, I can't believe I've missed that. So tiny little things. So we start literally from the ground up, like you're building a company. It's putting you back on the list, looks like ticking the survival boxes, the firefighting, clearing the decks, who's shouting the loudest, because let's be honest, that's where we all start. Um, and a lot of people will be pulled to those people that are shouting the loudest. But then it's having that confidence to say, well, although they're shouting the loudest, they're of course putting more emphasis on their thing because it's their thing. But actually, that's where I come in, and I will challenge clients and say, well, brutal priorities. Are you going to lose a client? Are you going to lose money? So if you're not, just because they're shouting the loudest doesn't mean you have to jump. So then it's really being laser focused and just monitoring those communications, acknowledging that they want their thing done, but actually just saying, okay, yeah, hear you. By the end of the week, works just as well. Yeah, nothing's going to happen. So it's having that confidence to actually just keep the comms open with whatever the thing is. Talking very generally here because it's, context is usually better. So that's how I start to really include the founder back into what they're building. So it starts really basic, but then it's even things like pulling in their family if they've got kids, partners, animals, whatever that looks like. It's when have you last taken your dog for a walk? When have you gone out on your own? When did you last go for a run? It's whatever your life used to look like, let's pull that back in because you are alive and you need to exist in the same breath. So it doesn't happen overnight, obviously, but it's looking at actual brutal deadlines. You getting out at you've got an investor meeting, for example, that kind of thing. When is that? We're pushing everything else away. That is a priority. So we're including you and the investor deadline for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and we're solely focusing on that. So I help build really sustainable deadlines with you in it in order to hit the priorities, basically.
Awesome. And something that really resonated with me when we were doing our prep call was you ask founders to kind of like look at how they're operating now. And I think, everyone based on deadlines, they push for something and they're like, oh, it's just this for a year or 2 years or 6 months or something. But you mentioned asking founders to take a step back and see how they're working now and then how long they can maintain that and what that looks like. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everyone can resonate. I mean, I talk from the heart here. I can absolutely really say this from the heart because this is how I pivoted last year. Last year was an absolute car crash for me, but I'm still standing. Um, we think we're just machines. We push, we push, we pull late nights. We skip lunch. How many of us skip lunch? I'm sure that's very common. And we tell ourselves it's okay because actually we're just doing it for today. We just need to get this email out. We just need to take this other call. Um, Whatever the thing might be, there's always something, and there always will be something. And that for me was a massive revelation. I mean, it's kind of obvious, right? But it is a revelation. There's always something. So I've already touched on it, but it's that brutal priority. There's always going to be something. So where are you going to draw the line? If there's always going to be a next thing, how long are you going to operate like it for? Because actually you're already operating like this. You're always pretty knackered. You know you're a bit dehydrated. You know you're not really showing up maybe in your partner relationships. You don't feel like maybe going out to the cinema or however that looks like. So actually if you were to say, right, I'm going to have a really hard stop at 3 o'clock on a Friday, for example, regardless of what the thing is, you really, really, by 2:30, you start to close down. So you work backwards. I'm not saying at 3 o'clock you literally just close the lid on your laptop and everything just kind of falls apart, but there's ways you can do this so it doesn't just hit you like a brick. Um, so it's a bit like it's exactly like hitting goals. You work out what the boundary is, whatever the deadline is, and you work backwards. It's exactly the same for when you're working with yourself and, reminding yourself to drink water. It doesn't matter what it is, it's exactly the same principle. Um, how do you want to live? If you are really, really running on empty, you absolutely could keep going, but is it making you happy? Probably not. So it really depends on how you're feeling, and this is where the energy part comes in. So I'm a night owl. I'm a runner. So I often go out on runs 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. And that works for me. I'm completely alive. I could work right the way through till 11 o'clock at midnight. That is just how I operate. In the morning, might get a couple of words out of me before around 8 o'clock. I have children, I do the school run, I do complete survival skills, talk to them minimally. But in the afternoon, I'm, full of the joys of spring because I've recognised that actually in the morning I just need a bit longer and I'm just not my best in the morning. So I don't really have any client calls between 9 and 10, I'm not going to be at my best. So it's recognizing actually, usually people will usually sit at morning lark, night owl. Not everyone. Some people are just kind of happy either end, but they're usually ticking the more survival boxes than others. So it's just recognizing where your energy's at. If you're fighting it, which a lot of founders I come into a contact with are, because they are up super early, they're also burning the candles at both ends, then you are going to have the consequences of feeling knackered, not quite on the ball, you're not laser focused, you can't quite find the words all the time because your brain's in 2 days ago. Um, so you've got to look at how is this stuff affecting you day to day? And actually, with very small tweaks, you'd be really surprised. With very small tweaks, it can have a massive effect. So it's just some people think about taking a step back as a really big reflection, and you've actually got to stop what you're doing in order to do that. You don't. It's just about, as you're almost thinking in parallel, carrying on with your day, but looking back at your diary and thinking, well, actually, that meeting was rubbish because as I came off it, I went straight into another call. I skipped lunch, the phone rang. If you're living life like this, then you're not showing up in your best energy. So yeah, like I say, it's very small tweaks, but it can have huge effect. And I'm a living example of doing that because I stopped trying to show up and be everyone's best friend at 9 o'clock in the morning because it just wasn't working.
Awesome. And I think a great segue out of that is you mentioned to me brain dumping and like when do you suggest doing that in someone's natural rhythm if they're a morning lark or a night owl and what that looks like.
Yeah, brain dumping. Wow. I mean, I think we've all done this, whether you call it brain dumping or something else, just creating your to-do list is probably more common. But I've been doing it for a really long time, but I didn't recognize it because it's also partially journaling, really. Um, when you going day to day, week to week, we've all got that stuff just in our head. I mean, I've done one this morning. I mean, it looks like I've written it with crayon with my foot, but I understand it, and that's all that matters. It doesn't make any sense to anyone else. It's a complete mixture of work and life and kids and whatever. But taking that stuff out of your head is just like therapy. It doesn't have to make sense, but when you read it back and you've got it next to you, it's you can cross stuff out because a lot of the stuff that you're writing down has either happened because it might be a bit, I don't know who knows this, but your brain has got no perception of time. It doesn't know if it's Monday or Wednesday or Saturday morning. It's just, it's like a computer, if you like, but it's just got no perception of day, night, or anything else. So the fact that we say, "Oh, I've got to get this done by Friday," it's got no idea what time midday on Friday is. It's just now focusing on the thing, which is why downloading all that stuff out of your brain gives it just space. It's like giving it back an open field and just kind of like going, wow, that feels amazing. And when everything's in front of you, you can then go through and put it in some order and put real deadlines in. Because, as I say, with no perception of time, your brain's got all this stuff going, well, you need to do all of this and you need to do all of it now because it doesn't know the difference between Friday, Monday, November, December. So that's why brain dumping is so good. Um, and you can lift it and then put it into your calendar into real time. It just opens a plethora of just organization. And it's not about then working back to back color coded calendars or anything like that. My calendar is not color coded at all. It's got gaps in it. It's got keep freeze. It's got, obviously client deadlines and meetings, etc. But it's also got dog walks and runs in it as well. Um, so it's about living the way you want to live, but without punishing yourself because you're still building a company. Because I think, again, it's as a founder, we want so much yesterday, but you can still build a really successful company as well as like survive and be alive. Because I think as a founder, we're like, no, 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 we've got to do all this stuff today. And somehow those things can't exist in parallel, and they absolutely can. I've had a client who constantly tells himself he's behind. And he's not behind. He's not behind. He's project working. We've got him away from saying He works hourly for clients and just constantly giving them a constant like email loop just to keep them in the summary. All of his clients couldn't be happier, but it's those mind monkeys constantly saying, you need to do this, you need to do this. So we've got into the brain dumping, lifting the actual deadlines into real time. And it's just about then embedding some sustainable habits because that's all this stuff is, right? It's just a sustainable habit. So the brain dump can really open up what you really have to do, not necessarily what we want to do because they aren't quite the same. Um, and that's why putting real-time deadlines in helps because we will naturally gravitate towards the stuff that we like to do. I think, Michaela, I used the example when we initially chatted that you won't really catch me doing any of my own accounting because numerical things aren't my thing, and I'm happy to put my hands up to that. Anything like that goes to my accountant straight away. Um, so it's, if you've got a team around you, are you using them well? How is delegation working? I mean, that's opening up a whole nother conversation. But if you are still a one-man band and you are still doing all the things, looking at what you're actually good at, what you enjoy is not a bad thing. So I think again, as founders, we really, really give ourselves a hard time but I should be good at everything. It's my business. I should know how everything operates. I should be really good at tech. And I am not good at tech. We should be good at tech. We should be good at marketing, sales, delivery. The list is endless. And, Richard Branson, great example. Was he good at a lot of things back then when Virgin started? Definitely not. We all know that he wasn't. And he's very open saying that he delegated loads of stuff really early on and he's kind of doing all right. So yeah. But anyway, the brain dump stuff is a great place to start.
Yeah, and I think this is a great switch into when you're a one-man band talking, you touched on a bit about just the brutal prioritization necessary and being okay with something slipping through the cracks and then maybe segueing into, once you decide what to let go and become okay with that, like how to be okay with shifting priorities to other people.
Yeah, and there is stuff that falls through the cracks. I'm sure you can all think of a couple of examples in the last couple of weeks where maybe you've just missed it. You've just missed it. You've just been looking at something else, doing something else, and you've just missed it. An email, whatever it might be. Right, it happens. Even Richard Branson again. I mean, imagine how many things fall through the cracks, even at his level or when he was back building as a one-man band. It happens. Um, and I'm actually a really big advocate for letting things fall through the cracks because I think that it builds the resilience. I know it's a bit of a cliche saying that, but it's true. And it really, really laser focuses you on the priorities because no one can do everything. I don't care literally who they are. No one can. And we shouldn't be doing everything. We're not built for doing the sales, doing the accounts, you do marketing. Like, can you even imagine if you were good at everything? You would never sleep. You would never have time for anything. Um, and your business would never grow either because you wouldn't need anyone else and you'd be forever man band. It would be really boring. So, we're programmed in order to be really good at something, or, I adore client delivery. Marketing, like most people, we're probably getting used to it because putting yourself out there is a bit of a strange monster. But some things you can kind of mold yourself into. But it's giving yourself that forgiveness, right? We're human. If you're not great at one particular thing, that's fine. That's why you're going to build a business. That's why you're going to grow a team. So really stepping into that, do you know what? I'm a master at sales. I know that I am fantastic at sales. Own it, give yourself that confidence boost that you're really good so that when you bring someone on, and I think we can all resonate again, there's a real misconception that we take other people on as other mini us versions, and it shouldn't necessarily work like that because otherwise you all end up with the same skill. You should be taking on people that are complete opposites of you, um, which then is another mind monkey game, isn't it? Because then it makes you feel less than. But maybe another call about that another day. But it's recognizing that actually, once you've done a brain dump, circling it, I'm actually going to let that go this week. I physically cannot do that. So if, maybe it's a meeting, maybe you need to push back on a deadline for whatever reason, as long as you're communicating with the other side, most humans are going to be like, that might suck, but it's worse than going, if I just hide and don't email them, perhaps they won't notice. It's not always great letting people down, but if you let them know in advance, and even better, come up with a solution, move the meeting, come up with a better solution that actually, if we move it back 2 weeks, we can deliver better, whatever that might look like, then actually they're like, oh, okay, cool. Gives you more time back. So I'm a huge fan of letting things fall through the cracks as long as like I say, communicate.
And how do you help founders figure out, I think some of there's their clear strengths and areas they want to focus on. Maybe there's some that they need to be strong in and need to focus on, and then the ones that really don't need to be under their purview. How do you help them figure out what those areas are?
And it doesn't usually take long, actually, probably a good 15-20 minute chat. Um, it, so you can hear someone when they talk about their business, what they really like, because it will come across in how they describe their business, also what their business is. So, mine is primarily time management. So I must be good at organization because that's what my business is completely focused on. Um, so it depends how they're talking about their business and what their business is. If they're an accounting business, they should be good at numbers, should be. It's hard without context to say, but if they're a coach, which is a kind of bit more of a generalist business, obviously they've got specialisms, but it depends what words they're using, if they want to scale, and if they want to scale, what direction they want to go in, because what direction they want to go in will also tell me their strengths, because they're being pulled in one direction for a reason. And as humans, we're pulled in certain directions because we like doing that thing. So I would, it's only a short conversation, but I can usually determine within sort of 15-20 minutes as to their strengths and weaknesses. If they're really struggling, trying to work out what they're good at, maybe at their stage where they want to take it on a VA, something like that, just to shift some admin, but they don't really know what they could shift to a VA. Um, yeah, a short conversation, and I could sort of help establish that.
And how, when people are making these kind of big decisions, I think a lot of them, like you said, letting things fall through the cracks or saying no to something can carry a lot of emotion as a founder because you just really want to perform. How do you help founders think through that?
Um, So it's almost like giving themselves permission, really, because again, we want to be doing it all ourselves. We feel like we should be doing it all ourselves because it's our business, and we think, well, I've started this. I've got to do all the stuff, right? But where do you want to get to? So we're in like mid-July with the summer. So use September as a great example. September, I think, is the biggest month of the year. Um, Everyone it gives themselves huge goals, bless them. We come out for summer with huge aspirations to, right, I'm going to get, the last quarter, I'm going to go at it crazily. It's the countdown to Christmas. If you've got kids, they go back to school. So much happens in September, and a lot of my content is centered around give yourself a break. Like I know it's the summer at the moment, but you don't have to run at September like you're in the fastest relay race in the world. October can still be the same. It's just you can have a break over the summer, but you can still keep momentum. You don't Having a break doesn't literally mean laying on the floor and doing nothing. It's about how you want that break to look like, and how you want your business to look like as you go into the last quarter. Um, and it's about having those flexible boundaries. So, like setting goals, where do you want to get to? Realistically, if you want to suddenly hit a 250K goal when you're only really turning over 75, it's probably a little bit kind of, up there. So, be realistic with yourself. Where do you want to get to? Break it down into a brain dump, lift it into real time. So again, what time have you actually got available? So a lot of again, very common with founders, but it's a good trait to have. Working with actual time. So not 9 to 5, nothing like that, because we don't necessarily work like that. But put your life into your calendar. include your partner if you've got the school run, anything like that, your run, time for you. And I'm not talking about hours, even just sort of half an hour a week. And then whatever time you've got left, you can allocate your goals, how you want your life to look, and just work backwards. So that I say that's it. That's obviously whizzed through it, and having context with one particular business and person always helps. But that is what I do with people, and then it's just holding them accountable on our calls to say, well, okay, that completely landed out of the sky, curveballs, we will have a curveball. Um, but by putting it into your calendar with real time, with what's available, you've got time to catch these curveballs. It's because you're using actual real time rather than putting your entire brain dump in your calendar and doing it all by Friday, because that's not real. That's not realistic. You're not taking into account any kind of fact that you need to eat, sleep, basics, anything like that. So I'm really realistic with anyone I work with and myself now. So
Awesome. And maybe we can dive further into that calendaring. Just like how frequently do you suggest someone does that kind of big brain dump? And then what what does it look like for scheduling time for maybe the more difficult, heavy thinking tasks versus like when to check their email and things like that?
um so if you haven't brain dumped before, it's a bit strange, but it's incredibly simple to do. I mean, I even help people, get into that habit of the brain dump. I'd say weekly, definitely weekly. They can get into a habit of doing it weekly. I'm a big fan of planning on a Friday if you can. I mean, looking at just kind of like the working week as a generalist at the moment, because you get your weekend back immediately. I mean, I know a lot of you guys will probably do some work over the weekend, and that's great. But planning on a Friday gives your head back the weekend. So even if you have more downtime in the week, having it on a Friday gives you the classic weekend. Yeah, I've just seen that. Yeah, it is. It's the Sunday night is really common. Many people plan their week on a Sunday night. It comes from being at school, packing your bag and all that thing on a Sunday night. But I'm in my 40s. I don't pack a bag on a Sunday night. I don't know about you. So it doesn't really need to be done anymore, but we still carry this stuff into adulthood. So although I've got kids, I don't need to plan on a Sunday night. I'm coming back here. I work from home on a Monday, so I don't need to do that anymore. So I brain dump on a Friday. I mean, I do multiple of them during the week, but Friday lunchtime to Friday sort of afternoon, I'll be thinking about the weekend, because I want my weekend. I don't want to think about my work. I've built this new business in mind so that flexibility is huge to me. And having that time at the weekend away from work actually gives me so much respite, if you like, so many more ideas. And I come to my clients absolutely on fire because I have that rest time. And that's me recognizing that energy. Um, so planning your week, the week after on a Friday is massive. And that's, going into your emails. So things like that, I think no more than half an hour checking your emails. I mean, it's not to say that I expect you to clear your inbox in a half an hour because that's not realistic. Um, and also just a caveat, I'm not one of those people that has an inbox zero either. I'm not interested in an inbox zero. It doesn't make me sleep at night. I don't care less. I still go through my inbox with priorities. I'll unsubscribe from the odd email if it's not relevant anymore, and I'll check my inbox once a day, but I usually do it around sort of 9:30, 10 o'clock, and that's how I get into my day. That's what I do. Um, and then about 10, 15 minutes before I finish the day. That's my routine. Um, it depends what you need to do. So any deeper work, if you've got some drafting to do, an investor deck, something like that, which can take days, right? Investor decks are yeah, are monsters. So it's recognizing your energy. Are you up at 5? Are you completely alive at 5? Do you go up, go have a run, come back, shower, and you're like, right, I really want to get my teeth into something? Then recognize that. If you feel that you could really dive into something at that time of the morning, I'd be sticking in a good hour to, I call it stepping into the shoes of that. So using drafting an investor deck as an example, stepping into the shoes of that, have you outlined what you want to cover? and what you want it to look like at the end. So we've already touched on it. What do you want it to look like at the end? Once you've outlined the summary, I'd go and take a break personally. So I'd have like an hour of just going, right, this is what I want it to look like. These are the main points. I've kind of got a rough idea. I feel like I could really like just start. I would then take another 10 minutes away from my laptop because I think it'd be really easy to just probably sit down all day and get lost. Um, and I think there's already a contradictory argument here where people think, well, why would you break that concentration almost to then take another break? Because you probably need to stretch your legs, because if you are going to go in deep and sort of 2 hours or more, then I'd want you to have water, snacks. I mean, I set up my workstation with food, water. It's like I'm going into sort of war. I mean, I've got everything around me that I need, because if I'm going to be doing something, I don't then want to have to go, oh, I'm really thirsty, because then you're up and down and it's just interrupting your day. So set up where you're going to be concentrating with, your favorite music, your favorite drink, leave your phone behind you, set yourself up so that you can put your head down for a couple of hours. I'm a great fan of just having some kind of just light music on in the background if I am going in deep, just to kind of keep me in flow. Um, but I wouldn't say any more than 2 hours in one go, to be honest, because again, we're human, we're not machines. Your brain will start to just naturally kind of, a bit magpie-like, but just sort of wander around. Have a break. But if you are, if you've built those habits, the founder guy that I was talking about earlier, the client can go really deep for sort of 4 to 5 hours. He's been doing it for years, but we've built his habits to recognize that, so that that's pretty much the only thing he's doing that day, and he doesn't do that every single day. But we've recognized it and we've run with it. This isn't about coming in and teaching new techniques, the Eisenhower technique or anything like that. I'm very much, you're already working in a certain way. Let's just tweak it so that you're looking after yourself at the same time, but let's get the best results for you, because if this is working, let's not change it. What's the point? So yeah, so calendar management, going deep, see what's working. You'll know what's not working because it won't feel right. You're not really getting results. You feel like you're doing a bit of this, you're doing a bit of that. It's if something will be working in your calendar management, it will be working. So hold on to it, don't change it, and then look at the things that you think, oh, could I outsource that? Um, if you're getting pulled into your emails 20 times a day, that's you could have an out of office on all the time that just says, I check my emails once a day around lunchtime. Don't commit. Don't say I check them at 1 p.m. because if you happen to be stuck in traffic and you're not checking at 1 p.m., you're always going to get someone that go, oh, you didn't reply to me. So, give yourself that space to own your time and just communicate out with everyone else that's in your world so that they know that you're working on something, but actually you're not there just to kind of answer as soon as someone emails you, calls you, or whatever. So use the out of office reply. You can even have like an attestation at the bottom that just says, I think a lot of people do use this. Just because I'm emailing you at 2 in the morning, I don't expect you to be replying. A lot of people use that. And that's great, because I'm one of those people that does reply at 2 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't expect anyone else to reply at that time, of course not. So, but it's about setting those boundaries that work for you.
Amazing. And that's a great tip, that out of office. Are there any other tools like with brain dumping? Is that, pen and paper? And then how do you think about like calendar? Are there any tech tools that you suggest founders use?
Um, tech's a, tech's a huge big black hole, because it depends what you're already using. So I'm Microsoft. I come from the corporate world, so I'm kind of Microsoft programmed, and it works for me. A lot of people have Gmail, which again is fine, but it's finding what works for you. So I have my CRM is Dubsado. That works for me. But again, there's oh my word, we'd be here forever, wouldn't we, talking about tech? So if you're if you'd like some kind of piece of tech to, looking for a CRM or something like that, I can answer questions. I'm not a tech wizard by any means, but it depends what your business is, how you're kind of operating as well, and what you'd like that tech to do. Usually, I chose Dubsado for a good reason, but you've got so many, loads and loads of different CRMs out there. So it depends what you want that tech to use, to be used for. But brain dumps, I am pen and paper all the way because it's fresh. The sheer operation of just writing it with a pen, I think, is far more therapeutic than typing. But I do know clients that do type it out into just a Word document and that works for them. So it's not about fighting and me saying, right, this is what works, you should do this, because that is not what I'm about. As I say, I'm all about tweaks, because tweaks are what works. And, we're all time poor. No one's got time for implementing a brand new strategy in a busy world. So it's jumping in, going, right, how are you operating? Someone going, do you know what? I am all over the place. I don't know where to start. Right, let's brain dump. How can we get you moving now? That is what I'm all about, because that's what we are. We want to keep moving. We want to get that momentum. We want to get on to the next thing. So it's about having things around you to support you to keep that momentum going. So run with what you're doing and just have things around you to keep that momentum going.
Awesome. I know I want to leave time for some Q&A from the founders, but maybe just kind of like one more question, and then if you want to hit on anything else before we pivot to Q&A. I think if there's any like prompting questions that founders can like write down and take away to help with brain dumping or reflecting on their current load, or anything you use to help people start stepping back and looking at this. Just some final takeaways there.
So I have touched on them. So definitely your strengths and weaknesses. If you haven't already identified your strengths and weaknesses, just have a think. I'm not asking you to go, do you know what? I'm really crap at this. I can't do this. I'm not very good at this. That's not what this is about. I really beat myself up last year when I transitioned from my kind of what I was known for a good 20 years into what I do now, because I simply wouldn't recognize what I was good at. And it took me, well, I sucked the life out of it, to be honest. It took me months and months and months for me to literally say, I'm not organizing everyone on every level anymore. I'm just focusing on the time management and everything that we've touched on today, because that's what I'm really good at. I'm not very good at the constant checking of emails, the constant the meetings and everything, because that wasn't serving me or my clients. But I wouldn't recognize it because I felt that I should be doing it because that's what I've always done. It feels amazing actually just saying that out loud. But it took me, oh my word. And no one else could have got me there. It was a very, very individual journey, as I'm sure some of you could recognize even an element of that. So identifying what you're good at and what you're not good at is almost revolutionary, I think, to being a founder, because it's once you've got that, do you know what? I'm so good at sales. Brilliant. Right. Who else can I bring in? Where am I right now? So recognizing where you are right now, where do you want to get to in September? It's not very far away. What do I need to do to get there? Please be realistic. And then, what couple of things can you achieve over the summer? Summer is a rest period most of the time. I'm not stopping across summer. I've got 3 children, but I'm not stopping. I've got things in place so my business can still run. I'm still looking to achieve probably more sales in the summer than I have at any other point in the year, but I will still have a break. Um, and that's more mental training than it is anything else. So it's, yeah, strengths and weaknesses. If you can start doing a brain dump and planning on a Friday, I'd say those are my three biggest takeaways because they've worked for me, and they work for literally every single one of my clients as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I think founders, if you guys, this is a great opportunity to spend time with Abigail. So if you have any questions, feel free to just come on or put them in the chat if you would prefer.
I have, I got a founder who sent me 2 DMs to ask, so I'll ask those. And then we have a question from Andrew as well. The first question was regarding something that you said at the beginning. You said last year was a bit of, I think you described it as like a car crash of a year for you. And the
Yeah.
question was like, if you find yourself in a car crash year, how do you pull yourself out of it and move forward?
So for me last year, again, last year was more about the mental. Like I said, I was completely in my own way. Completely. It was I was the issue. So who's around you? Who can you talk to? I bet you've got a community. I mean, you're in Hotbed, right? So there is definitely a community around you. I mean, feel free to DM me if you think I could possibly help you. Talk to people. I didn't talk enough. I kept it a lot in my head. Although I was doing the brain dumping of the day to day, a lot of it wasn't really coming out because I thought the issue was me, and it wasn't. It wasn't at all. So recognize where you are, strengths and weaknesses, like we've just said. What are you good at? Is what you're good at what you want to actually run forward with? Is it starting a new business? Is it just tweaking the business that you've got, maybe? Talk to people. You'll be surprised at what people have gone through and come out the other side, or they might have gone through it and gone, do you know what, that business needs to close, which is what I did. Um, and that's perfectly fine too. I mean, how many founders do we know that are on their third, seventh, 11th business, or whatever? So talking to people is just gold. Even if you think you said it a million times, say it a million one times, because it's so, so helpful. But yeah, don't keep it in your head.
That's great advice for everything in life. Talking
Yeah.
with people
Yeah,
usually
it could be
means
going through anything.
most painful. Yeah. And then the other question I got here was you mentioned using a virtual assistant. Do you have any advice on finding a useful virtual assistant and sort of like VA management tools or techniques?
Um, Yeah, there's a VA for everything, right? So I think VAs are great. I come from that world. So I do help clients find VAs because I think if you're at that stage and you do want to start outsourcing things, outsourcing stuff and general stuff isn't really a good reason to be outsourcing, in my opinion. This is obviously what I believe, because VAs should be specialised in something. Coming back to the strengths and weaknesses, don't forget. So you could get VAs that are good at social media, maybe they're good at sort of bookkeeping, admin, that kind of thing. Maybe they're fantastic at the PA element, so they'll be great at sorting all your meetings out, gatekeeping, that kind of stuff. So why do you want a VA would be my first question. What gap are you looking to fill? Have you got to the point where you're constantly emails, you've got meetings coming out of your ears, you're doing delivery, that kind of thing. So that would be great if you're in that scenario. I mean, feel free to pop in the chat why you're thinking a VA would be of a good use, and maybe I can actually answer the other end of the question. Um, but I would consider a VA if you've got for a specific reason, not just because you don't really know where to start and you're hoping they can lead you. There are VAs like that. That's more of an executive assistant, and there definitely are VAs that fill that gap. But you need to know where you're at in your business in order to then you wouldn't manage them. EAs wouldn't necessarily need micromanaging, but you need to know what to give them because they will say to you, well, where can I start? So you need to know where you're starting in order for them to have someone running parallel with you. Um, so yeah, so if you could give me a bit more information on why you'd want a VA, that would be great.
I'll let you know if the person
Yeah, okay.
DM from the Zoom chat. I have a question from Andrew. He said, "Thanks for this. Cheesy but true. Health is wealth. What platforms do you use in your day-to-day to help manage your time more effectively?"
So would you believe I only use Microsoft Outlook Calendar? That's it. So I organise myself in my head. I've done this for a very, very long time. So before I was primarily organising me and clients, I come from the legal industry where I was organising partners of law firms, etc. So I'd organise anyone I'd sort of work for, up to 6 or 7 people at one time. Back in my early 20s. So I've been doing this a really long time. So I'm very good at someone saying to me, "Oh, I've got 4 witness statements that I need to draft," I can realistically say what kind of time that's going to take, because I not only have I drafted a witness statement myself, I've typed it and I've amended it. So I've been through that kind of estimation of time myself. So, and then I lift it and put it into real time in my Outlook calendar. So I've just got good at, again, working at my strengths, at recognizing what can be done in a day, what should be done in a day, and what can't be done in a day. So, and that's why I stepped into this, and that's solely what I focus on, right? So, yeah, try and be as realistic as you can, and if that's a bit tricky, overestimate. It's always better to have extra time than to be like, oh my God, I'm going to miss a deadline. I've run out of time.
Okay, I have an actual personal question now, but I hope I'm not the only person who does this. But one thing I found is like with doing a brain dump or a to-do list, I always tell myself like, oh, I'll do a to-do list like after I get these few other things done. Like, let me do a few things before I create my to-do list. And then that just ne always gets pushed, pushed, pushed. Do you have any advice on that, or is that just like a silly mental block I need to like get over?
Yeah, that's just the habit you've built. That's just the way you operate. So you have got a to-do list, but it's in
Yeah,
your head. So, and you're used to just carrying it in your head. So that's where the brain dump comes from. So that's where I'd say, and a brain dump's not like an hour activity. Mine take me 10, 15 minutes.
mm,
So they can take an hour. If you're strolling through a park and you've got time on your hands, you can do a full-on brain dump. But, we haven't all got that time. So I would, if I was you, 10 minutes, focus everything in your head, literally throw it at the page. No order, literally just like throwing paint at a wall. See how much you can get out. And then when you're looking at it, I think you'd be surprised as to actually what needs to be done. Some of the stuff that you'd be throwing at a page would just be things that you carry around in your head because, like I say, our brain's got no idea of time. Um, so yeah, but that's just a loop that you've got yourself into, which is fine. We've all got alternatives of that. But to break that cycle, it's maybe start to look on a Friday afternoon, I'm going to start to brain dump. Because if you weren't to have all that stuff in your head, you might be more relaxed. You might feel that you're not so rushed. You might show up to meetings a bit calmer. So it might start to have a more relaxing effect because you've got space in your head. Yeah.
that's so useful. I'm gonna start the Friday to-do list. I love that idea. One thing I'd love to hear more on, I know you touched on this briefly at the beginning, but is this like idea of energy management?
Mm.
Could you share a bit more about like what that means and how that is implemented on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, sure. So could use an example, like me as an example. So last week, I think it was like not Friday, Thursday. I had no calls, no client calls. I had things to do. We all have things to do. But I didn't do hardly anything Thursday. None of them had priorities that included deadlines on Thursday. And I had a really slow day, and it was all about me just taking the dog for a walk, just being me. I adore the outside. I'm a runner. I run all year round. Um, and I just needed to rest. I just really recognized that. I mean, it's been really hot in the UK. I love the heat. I am a lizard. I love sitting in the sun. It physically recharges me, and I just potted around in the garden. I just needed that time to just have a couple of things settled. I've taken on a few clients. I needed to kind of work out like the plan going forward. Sometimes, it's a bit like sleeping on it. I just needed some time to just be me. Um, and don't get me wrong, my brain was like, what are you doing? It's Thursday. There's stuff you need to do. You should be working. You should be doing stuff. But I really made myself just have a really slow day. And Friday, I felt amazing for it. I really, really needed it. So it can't always be done. And I knew it was coming because nothing was in my diary. And, I knew I didn't have to hit a deadline or anything on Thursday. So I knew I could do it. So the rest of it was just about giving myself permission to not open my laptop, almost like being a rebel, because it's if you're at your laptop, you're working, right? But how many times we are at our laptops or PCs when we're not really working, we're not really doing anything. We're sat there because we feel like we should be sitting there. Get up, don't, it's hard to do. It's hard to recognize this stuff, but this is where coming out of my pivot last year, I really picked up on this stuff. I want my life to operate in a certain way, and it's about me recognizing that if I feel like a rebel, then I can include that in my business. It's our business. It's our business. We don't have to be constantly earning or what, however it looks like for you all the time. It's our business. And for me, a large part of my business is a huge incorporation of my energy management, because when I am in flow, I am absolutely on fire. And what I can do in a day, I could pretty much write the rest of the week off. But when I'm not in flow, it's like a car accident, hence last year. So for me, recognizing my own energy is key. So having like days like Thursday where I give myself just a bit of time is me just replenishing. Yeah, and like I say, Friday was brilliant. I got tons done because I was in a completely different space. So yeah.
I love that. I have a follow-up question on that. Like one observation, we've had I think maybe 800 founders go through our programs at this point, and I've had like countless conversations now with founders who are so inundated with the messaging of you need to be working 24/7, and if you aren't, you're just going to fail. Like you shouldn't even take yourself seriously if you aren't working 24/7. And that narrative is so loud. Um, so it almost becomes like the guilt associated with trying to shape a calendar around what works best for you and what makes you the most like productive, best version of yourself. Even if you do that, if the founder is still feeling so guilty during their time off, they don't get the benefits of it. So do you have any advice on sort of helping people like reframe taking that time off in their mind? I mean, I like the rebel idea that you talked about that. I think that's really powerful. But like how founders can um not feel guilty and like make sure that they're not getting in their own way.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I've referred to it a few times, but yeah, me last year, my car crash, my pivot, I felt huge guilt, huge guilt. And the only person I was punishing was myself. It didn't progress me forward. It served absolutely no purpose whatsoever. So all this stuff that we're going through, like what are you building? Why are you building it? Everyone asks you, what's your why and all that deep stuff. But what is your why? Why are you doing this? Why did you start doing this? For me, why I pivoted out of what I pivoted out was because I really wanted to make other people's businesses real. So time management is known for such a boring, like, you think of people teaching time management, you think of clipboards, you think of like corporate settings, you think of, you've got to allocate 2 hours for this, back to back, etc. I wanted to bring time management into now because, I'm not going to mention what happened in 2020. We all know what happened, but, life looks different. People are going to the gym at midday and, work-life balance, there is no balance and it's not going on that either. But I wanted to bring time management into the reality of building businesses messy, building businesses in no particular order. I am not perfect in any way, but none of us are. And done is better than perfect, I think is the best saying I've ever come across. There's no right way of building a business because we're all built completely differently. So time management is a massive element of anyone's life, regardless of whether you're building, scaling, even beyond that. So that's why I wanted to focus solely on time management and particularly with founders, because I think we put ourselves through such warlike, you know, crap in our head that I wanted to offer that support to say, what are you building? Right, you're not on your own, like you can do this. Let's be realistic. Let's look at what actually can be done in a month. Let's get you laser focused. So what does that take to give you laser focus? Right, we need to make sure you're running 10 miles a week, for example. We need to make sure you're picking your kids up on a Friday afternoon. Putting that stuff into your actual life will make you achieve whatever you're looking out to achieve, because that's your life. You've got that, you've got children in your life, you've got to include them. So it's looking at things with such a black and white lens, but it's real life. And time management has to be real life or it doesn't work. So that's where I'm coming at it from, because I've not, there are so many different time management strategies, books and things. Obviously, we all can name about three, but I believe that if you're not working with the way you're already living, none of it's sustainable. So what's the point? Eisenhower is great. The 5 hour work week, Tim Ferriss is also brilliant, but 5 hour work weeks, I bet none of you could probably say that you could get everything done in 5 hours, because it's not real. It doesn't, that's way away from where we're operating now. So let's start where we're at in however you're already operating. Don't worry about any ducks being in a row or anything like that. Let's start with where you're at and let's just tweak and move forward, because that is how I pulled myself out of the car crash, and how everyone else is going to keep their business moving forward.
That's so useful. This was just filled with so many, like,
Actually, that was quite
very,
well articulated as well.
it's the perfect, we'll be able to do a nice little snippet for our YouTube shorts.
Yeah.
They work well with the algorithm. I think we've got many good sound bites, and so many like practical tips that I know I'll start implementing this week. Abigail, thank you so much. Where can founders find out more about your work and what you do?
LinkedIn is my platform. I'm all over LinkedIn. Again, I'm not on, I am on other platforms, but I'm not active. I focus on LinkedIn because I focus on one thing, because everything else is just noise. If you do more than one, my own opinion. So LinkedIn, Abigail Langridge.
Okay, perfect. And we'll share the LinkedIn with the follow-up email that will go to founders. Thank you so much.
No,
Founders will say goodbye to you all now. We do have our next session tomorrow at 11. It's a pitch session. If you want to practice your pitch live, please shoot me an email. We'll get you on the lineup. Other than that, thank you so much. Thanks again, Abigail.
thank you. Thank you for everyone listening. That was, yeah, it was brilliant. Thank you.